For more about Premier Lee's speech and China's role on the UN or at the UN, let's bring in Einar Tangen of the Centre for International Governance Innovation. Great to see you, Einar. We heard there from Jim Spellman a nice bird's eye overview from New York at the UN General Assembly. How would you describe the image Beijing has displayed on the global stage this week?
Well, I think what Jim said, Sally, about, bookends, starting off with Trump and then ending with China, really, you couldn't get anything more different. One has it's me first, no one else. And, China put forward the adult view, which is lead by example, be a stabilizing force. China stepped forward and said, in terms of the WTO, there will be no more special treatment for China. This was applauded, but this is about self-sacrifice, not about complaining about escalators and things like that. So he really couldn't have a more different perspective on that. He touched on so many subjects that are very, very important to the global South in terms of development, security, civilization, and also the new governance, global governance reform initiative. So these are things that will make the UN work. And obviously, Donald Trump was somebody who was trying to explain that he doesn't think the UN works.
That was a good point in terms of trade. Li Chang said China would no longer claim trade benefits as a developing nation at the World Trade Organization. You're saying that China is casting itself there as a champion of fair trade at a time when the Trump administration is undermining the global trading system?
Well, absolutely, Sally. I mean, but it's more than words. This is the big issue here. For 12 years, $1.3 trillion put into Belt and Road Initiative that covers 150 countries. China stepping up and saying, look, we don't need to be considered special. There are too many other needs in the world. This is, leadership by action. I don't know how else to put it. Whereas, you had a very sharp contrast at the beginning of the week with the way that Trump sees the world, which is not about taking responsibility. It's about casting yourself as a victim. China is casting itself as a leader. And that means sacrificing and doing the right thing, not just talking about it.
What about in terms of leadership? What about when it comes to peace? I mean, Li cast China as a force for peace and cooperation, citing Beijing's support for peace talks with Ukraine and Russia, as well as Israel and Palestine. Do you see China taking a more leadership role in that sense, brokering peace in either of those conflicts?
I think, once again, it's leading by example. What China has avoided doing is trying to interfere directly in these, conflicts. We have a long history of the United States barging in and either trying to assert its dominance or say we're going to create peace. We've seen that in the Middle East for these many years. It hasn't solved anything. So right now, I mean, this idea of non-interference, about getting countries together, creating peer pressure, putting regional countries together and saying, listen, we have let's sit on the same side of the table. Let's not make this across the table. Everybody wants peace, development, security, and respect. I mean, these are universal. So this is what China is pushing. They're not saying we're going to tell you what to do. It says we want to get you to the table and we want to support it. And that is the recipe or the new idea for lasting peace, as opposed to, try to put these stopgaps in and pretend that things are happening when in fact all the enmities are still there. So China, as I said, lead by example, which does mean that it's a multilateral approach, not this unilateral, I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to like it.
And it certainly did make a mark in terms of climate policy. China has made its first public pledge to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, seeking to reduce emissions by at least 7 to 10% by 2035. Is this a realistic goal, not just for China, but for global leadership?
Well, I mean, it's a realistic goal for China because China has consistently met its goals. This is something where, people don't understand. These 5-year plans aren't just, a bunch of words. Every year, the government is called to account and has to explain what they're going to do and what they have done. It's a report card. So China doesn't have a choice. There's a little bit of wiggle room in there, obviously, because there's so many, difficult situations going on, real questions, especially with the U.S. going on. China is leading by example once again. It's saying this is what we're going to do. It's trying to encourage other nations to do the same, despite headwinds being created by those who believe that climate change is, quote, a hoax.
All right, Einar Tangen, we'll leave it there. Appreciate your time.